The congressman has just walked in, so let's let him say hello. Or not. Well, I guess I will keep on going. Okay, okay, we're on page 18, the expected outcomes. This is something that people sometimes get tripped up on, the difference between an outcome and an activity. If you say you're going to hold a meeting, that's an activity, it's not an outcome. If you say you're going to hold a meeting so that members of the community can come up with a plan to solve a problem, then the outcome is the plan to solve the problem. So you have to be careful that because the difference is the activities is how you kind of come to your outcome, but the outcome is what you actually want to achieve. You're not holding a meeting just for the sake of holding a meeting. You're holding a meeting in order to achieve something else. Funders really like for you to be specific and measurable in your outcomes. If you say you're going to help people get jobs, then you want to say you're going to serve 100 unemployed people from Detroit, and that you expect by the end of the project year that 75% will have found a job. I'm just making up those numbers. They may be very unrealistic. But the point is that you need to be very specific in terms of how many you're going to reach, how many will actually achieve what you are trying to achieve, and what the time frame is in which you're going to do it. You don't want it to be just open-ended. Okay, the evaluation plan. This is something which can be as simple as a pre-test and a post-test. If you're having some kind of training session, at the beginning you have them take a test to see what they know. At the end, you have them take the test again to see if they've done any better. Or if you're doing some kind of research study, then it needs to be much more complicated. In that case, you may want to contact one of the universities and try to get a grad student or a professor or somebody to help you plan a good evaluation. Something that you need to do is also use part of the evaluation to monitor the program as it's going. You don't want to just, if it's a year-long project, you don't want to wait until the end of the year and evaluate and say, oops, you know, we didn't do X, Y, and Z. You want to have perhaps quarterly or monthly, some kind of monitoring activities on a regular basis. So if you see that things are not working out, that something's going wrong, you have a chance to do a course correction. And that's something that you need to include in the proposal. They want to make, the funders want to be clear that this is not, the evaluation is not something that you just tacked on at the end because you're required to do it. They want to see that you really have a commitment to evaluating the project to see that it's going to go well, because they don't want their money to be wasted. Any questions on that part? Yes. Okay, she asked in the needs section, is that where you would put in information about collaborating with another group, and would that group then also put in a proposal, maybe to the same foundation or what have you, to do the activity? You probably would not have that in the needs section. You would probably put that in the section where you have the proposed project or activities. That's where you would describe what you're going to do, and then you would say, in doing it, we're going to work with such and such an organization. Now, what you also would want to do is have some kind of letter of agreement or contract with that other organization saying, basically, that they agree to that, that you didn't just stick it in there and then hope later on that they will agree. So you want a letter from them saying that they know that you're proposing this, that they agree to work with you. And then what you may also want to do is work out an arrangement with them. If they're going to be providing certain services, let's say the grant is for $100,000, then you may want to award $20,000 to them for whatever part of the project they're doing. And all that should be explained in the letter of agreement. You don't necessarily have to get into too much detail, but you need at least some. And I know I was going to get to it later, but I'll mention it now. If you're going to have any kind of letter of agreement with another group, you need to start working on that very quickly, because it may take time to negotiate. The person who needs to sign it is going to be out of town. There's always something. Something always happens. So when you need anything from anybody else, anything that's outside of your control, you need to do that as early as possible. Sometimes you also attach letters of support where you have other members of the community or past maybe recipients of your services. Let's say you have the substance abuse program, and there's someone who went through your program and completely turned his life around, and you want that person to write you a letter saying how great your program is. You want to ask them for that very early, because you don't know how long it's going to take them to do it. With other organizations that you might want a letter of support from, a lot of times you have to write that yourself. You draft it so that they know what kind of information you want in there. And then it also kind of speeds up the process, because then they can just rewrite it in their own words, but they know what has to be included. If you ask them to just write it and you don't tell them details, you know what happens. It's like one other thing they need to do, and it gets pushed to the side. So you want to make it as easy as possible for other people. I will also mention that when you need these things, make sure you tell people when you need to get it back from them. And you may want to say, if you need it on Friday, tell them you need it the Friday before. And then put a note in your calendar to make sure that you call them on Thursday to say, hey, did you do it yet? Because I'm telling you, I've been doing this for 25 years, and this is always a problem. So just avoid it by giving enough time and giving people enough information so that you can make it as easy for them as possible. Okay, any other questions? Okay, I'm going to, well, the bottom of page 18, decide what data will be collected and whether or how to collect factual information and relevant opinions. That's, again, something that you want to do way up front, so that by planning your evaluation up front, you can be sure that you end up with the information that you need. There's nothing worse than deciding that you should have taken attendance at a meeting, but the meeting is long since over, and there's no way now for you to get that information. So you need to plan all this up front so that you can be ready and don't miss any opportunities. Something else I've touched on a little bit is decide whether or not a staff person will do the evaluation, or you need to hire a consultant to help you with that. And then in the proposal, you will explain how you're going to use the evaluation results, which is they're usually used to improve your program. Sometimes you want to share them with other organizations doing similar work so that they can also learn from your experience. Then the next item is doing a schedule of the major tasks. And that's similar to the milestones that we talked about before. Now, I gave you a sample timeline there. And you don't have to do it in this format. This is what I like to use. But what you can also do is, in the first column, you have a list of dates, and the second column, a list of what activity will coincide with each date. And some people will go as far as have the date, the activity, and who's responsible for doing that activity.